And now to address Capitol Hill Democrats seeking to keep Guantanamo Bay open. Maybe they too think they can use health care there as a model for our system in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith. Keith, remember, I wrote my doctoral dissertation on health care in prisons. If there's anything that makes people's eyes roll back at a cocktail party, it's trying to make that argument outside of a political context. But you putting it in the political context is, thank you for that.
Oh, thanks. Gosh, I'm blushing.
Thank you, Keith. And thank you at home for staying with us for the next hour. The Republican Party chairman, Michael Steele, gets a huge cheer at the Republican Party's Reinventing Itself meeting today when he uses the word teabag. Donald Rumsfeld's legacy takes another big hit as Vanity Fair publishes damning allegations from one of his aides. And congressional Democrats put themselves, as Keith said, in the way of closing Guantanamo. Yes, Democrats doing that. That is all coming up in the next hour. But we begin tonight with a man named Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach, an F-15 fighter pilot, an 18-year veteran of the United States Air Force. On September 11th, Lieutenant Colonel Fehrenbach was picked to be part of the initial alert crew immediately following the 9/11 attacks. The following year, in 2002, he deployed to Kuwait, where he flew combat missions over Afghanistan, attacking Taliban and al-Qaeda targets. After the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, Lieutenant Colonel Fehrenbach deployed there, flying combat missions in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Over the span of his career, he has flown 88 combat missions, including missions that were the longest combat sorties in the history of his squadron. He logged more than 2,000 flying hours, nearly 1,500 fighter hours, 400 combat hours. Lieutenant Colonel Fehrenbach is also highly decorated. He's received 9 air medals, including one for heroism. After 18 years of active duty in the Air Force, this experienced, decorated fighter pilot says he is ready and willing to deploy again. He's ready to do whatever his country and the United States Air Force ask of him. The military is now firing him. He's just been informed by the U.S. military that his career is over. After 18 years of service, less than 2 years shy of being able to retire with a full Air Force pension, he's being discharged from the U.S. Air Force under the military's don't ask, don't tell policy. Despite a record of documented heroism, an unblemished career, despite the fact that he estimates the U.S. military spent roughly $25 million training him, Lieutenant Colonel Fehrenbach is being fired. He was informed of his impending discharge in September. He and his lawyer have tried to delay his appeal as long as possible, hoping that the new president would fulfill the pledge that he made as a candidate to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So far, that hasn't happened. But today, there were 2 important developments on that front. The first is the Obama administration's decision to accept an appeals court ruling in favor of another discharged Air Force pilot. Essentially, that ruling said that the government has to prove why the continued service of a gay service member, in this case a woman, is a threat to military discipline. The Obama administration could have appealed that ruling to the Supreme Court, but they chose not to. The other development was far less promising. It came from the Pentagon, which announced today that it has no plans to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and they say they do not anticipate being asked to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell anytime soon.
I do not believe there are any plans underway in this building for some expected but not articulated anticipation that Don't Ask, Don't Tell will be repealed. This building views Don't Ask, Don't Tell as the law of the land until Congress acts otherwise. To my knowledge, David, there are no internal planning efforts underway in anticipation of a change in that law.
It is in the shadow of these political promises left unfulfilled that Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach now faces his impending dismissal from the military, a decision that he challenged but so far has lost. Joining us now for his first ever interview is Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Rachel.
You've been in the Air Force for 18 years. What was your reaction when you found out that you're being investigated and then discharged?
I was devastated, absolutely devastated, Rachel. The Air Force has been my life. I was born on an Air Force base. The Air Force has been part of my family, and I've served for 18 years, and I was just 2 years short of retirement. So basically, I was faced with the end of my life as I knew it.
Were you expecting that you would at some point redeploy at the time that you found out that they wanted you out?
Absolutely. In fact, 2 weeks before this all came to light, 2 weeks after this all came to light, I was expected to deploy.
You were expected to deploy 2 weeks after they told you that they were going to take you out.
Yes.
So you were informed in September, and I know that the possibility of President Obama winning the election, again, you were told in September, the election was in November, factored into how you decided to proceed with your appeal here. How did it factor in?
Absolutely. These allegations first came to light in May, and I wasn't served my paperwork until September. And my initial reaction was I just wanted this all to go away. I wanted a quick, quiet, fair, honorable discharge. But the more I thought about it, about how wrong this policy is, I thought that I had to fight. And perhaps with my unique perspective, I could speak out and help other people in the meantime.
Did you think that President Obama, if he were elected, was going to end the policy?
I did. I had tremendous hope around September, and that was actually when I did reverse my decision and decide to fight, because I did have hope that President Obama would follow through on his commitment to change the policy and initiate a policy of non-discrimination.
There's obviously a great sense of urgency in your life right now to don't ask, don't tell. And, you saw the Pentagon spokesman speaking today, and you hear all the talk about how this is being discussed in Washington, and there definitely just does not seem to be that same urgency among the policymakers and the politicos on this. One of the things that's been proposed is that even if the policy can't be changed through Congress immediately, President Obama could show an act of good faith and do a lot of good by people like you by just taking executive action, not to end the policy, but to stop implementing it, to have a moratorium on the implementation of this policy until it can be reviewed. Would you support something like that?
Well, Rachel, that would be an immediate solution for me, and that would help my case. But the way I understand it, that's sort of a temporary solution. I think we need a permanent solution from Congress. I would hope that they would act, and I would hope that the president moves fast and fulfills his promise to us and proposes a policy of non-discrimination.
What's your response to the overall argument underlying this policy? I mean, the proponents of this policy say that you personally, you being gay, has a negative effect on your squadron's good order and discipline. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's absolutely false. Basically, I went to my board, and one of the board findings was that my presence was inconsistent with good order, discipline, and morale. And the fact of the matter is, for the last 369 days, I have been going to work every day and doing my duty with absolutely no impact on morale, discipline, and good order. For about 4,000 people are assigned to Mountain Home Air Force Base, and about 10 people on the entire base even knew about my case up until this very moment. And those were my immediate chain of command. There were a couple of the attorneys in the legal office and a couple of the investigators in the Office of Special Investigations. Not one single person that I'm assigned with in my squadron or that I fly with in my fighter squadron knew about this case until this moment.
I'd like to ask about something that's not related to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because I want people to remember you, and I want people to think about you when they think about this policy. Can I ask you, and I hope you don't mind me asking you because I didn't ask in advance if this was okay, could you tell me the circumstances of the Air Medal that you won for heroism?
Sure, I think I could tell you the basics of it. It was April 3rd, 2003, and basically the Army was making the initial advance on Baghdad and to first take Baghdad International Airport. And we were initially tasked with taking out basically any enemy positions we found that could stop their advance. And so after we had destroyed a couple of missile launchers, we actually found an Iraqi ambush site of about 12 armored personnel carriers that were just less than a mile from the Army advance. We could see the Army advance moving towards the airport. At the time, my wingman had a major aircraft malfunction, and he was unable to deliver his weapons. So in a short span of time, it was about 15, 20 minutes, we were able to employ all the weapons from my aircraft, and as well as I guided all the weapons from my wingman's aircraft while we were under, it was constant AAA fire, and I believe we were fired upon approximately 8 times by surface-to-air missiles.
And you took out that enemy position completely?
We took the entire position out, and that night the Army took Baghdad International Airport.
Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach, 18-year veteran of the U.S. Air Force, received your discharge letter September 2008. Good luck to you. Thank you for talking with us tonight.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right. Today, the chairman of the Republican Party attempted to launch post-Bush-Cheney, post-McCain-Palin Republican Party 2.0. There were some problems with the speech, but there was a lot of wild applause nonetheless. Steve Bannon will join us to discuss. And why are Democrats in Congress standing in the way of the Obama administration's plans to close Guantanamo? I have no idea, and I've been thinking about it and reading about it all day. We'll get some help on the subject from Congressman Adam Schiff in a moment. But first, one more thing. The latest person to call out President Obama for his waffly at best position on Don't Ask, Don't Tell is Meghan McCain. On the Colbert Report last night, she had this to say about the president's delay in repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
And I do believe that the Republican Party can be a safe place for the gay community. President Obama said he was going to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I think me and a lot of people are still waiting for that. And the Democratic Party isn't necessarily a better place for the gay community than the Republican Party is.
When a Republican says that the Republican Party is as vigilant on justice and equal rights as the Democratic Party, and you can't immediately laugh that Republican out of the room, Democrats have a problem. Mr. President, you have a problem.
You're going to love it here.
It's a great block.
Heads up! They may not love everyone on the guest list.
Dale.
Woo! But everyone loves the great taste of Country Time. America's favorite lemonade.
More lemonade?
Sure.
Clean coal technology is something that can make America energy independent. And by the way, we can create 5 million new jobs in clean energy technologies. This is America. We figured out how to put a man on the moon in 10 years. You can't tell me we can't figure out how to burn coal that we mine right here in the United States of America and make it work.
Whether it's Perry Ellis or Jones, New York, everybody can agree designer suits look expensive. Well, they are expensive. They're just not expensive here. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it.
In February, Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker James Harrison made history in Super Bowl 43 with a 100-yard interception return for a touchdown. Remember that? By winning the game, he and the Steelers earned the right to visit the White House. Yes, the precious memory of a meeting with a sitting president of the United States. But not for James Harrison. Mr. Harrison has now sacked the whole idea, telling a local Pittsburgh TV station he will not be joining the team for a trip to the White House this Thursday for this reason.
If you want to see the Pittsburgh Steelers, invite us when we don't win the Super Bowl. So, as far as I'm concerned, he would have invited Arizona if they had won.
Right. Exactly. If you win the Super Bowl, you get to go with your team to the White House. If you lose, you do not get that invitation. This was not explained to him ahead of time?
Even after 32 shampoos, I love how my color stays pure. How? New Everpure. L'Oreal's first shampoo free of harsh sulfates and salts. Everpure guarantees this. Rich lather so pure it respects every strand. L'Oreal's new Everpure.
Naturals from Purina Cat Chow. With whole grains, real chicken and salmon, and the goodness of leafy greens. You live well, you eat right. Help your cat do the same. Naturals from Purina Cat Chow.
It took us maybe, 2 hours to give up the corporate life?
I think it took me about 10 minutes. Running a B&B is not a desk job.
I have to climb stairs 20 to 30 times a day.
Keep moving with new Nature Made Triple Flex, newly formulated to work in as little as 7 days. With glucosamine to support cartilage health, hyaluronic acid known to lubricate joints, and chondroitin complex for fast joint comfort.
It's like a new beginning.
New Nature Made Triple Flex. Learn more at tripleflex.com. Nature Made. Fuel.
My name is Megan Hodge, and this is my 4th year at the university. Some of my hobbies include reading, swimming, playing basketball, but what I'm really passionate about is studying other cultures and languages, and I actually spent 2 years studying abroad in Japan. Obviously, being a student and studying abroad, money was sometimes a concern for me. If things got tight, my mom would transfer money into my account, and I could check it with the online banking. With the online banking, it's really simple and easy to use, and I've been using it ever since. Tucson Federal Credit Union, it really is better than a bank.
Hey Tucson, Express Flooring wants to help you shape up your home this summer. And now you can afford it. Buy before Memorial Day and save up to 60% on carpet, tile, wood, and laminate flooring. Less pain, more gain. Plus, buy with no interest for 1 full year. So call us today and we'll come to your home for a free in-home shopping experience. Getting in shape has never been easier. Express Flooring is the best. Call 800-EXPRESS. the happy home people.
Files today with Mosey Online Backup. Tomorrow, Michael Steele says no more apologies, Republicans.
Is that the right message?
Chris Matthews challenges the GOP revival. New era or old ideas?
What's changed?
Hardball with Chris Matthews. Tomorrow at 7 on MSNBC. The place for politics.
Today, the $80 million the Obama administration says it needs to close Guantanamo were denied to the Obama administration by that irrational, obstructionist party of no called the Senate Democrats. The Democrats? Yes, the Democrats in the Senate voted down funding to close Guantanamo. How did we end up with the Democrats blocking the Democratic president's plan here? Well, after President Obama said he would close the prison, just as President Bush said he wanted to close the prison, just as John McCain said he would close the prison too, Republicans decided to play the completely irrational fear card about that decision. Remember the video with the "so scary it's campy, oh Fortuna" playing in the background? Terrorists are going to live among you. There's going to be a terrorist serving you and your family at Chuck E. Cheese if they close Guantanamo. Every American will have to take in a terrorist like they're exchange students or something. Never mind that terrorists like Omar Abdel-Rahman, the blind sheik, and Eric Rudolph, and Timothy McVeigh, and the Unabomber guy, and Richard Reed, and Charles freaking Manson have all been imprisoned in someone's hometown in America without incident. In fact, there is an empty, brand new high-security prison in the economically depressed town of Hardin, Montana, that says that it would be delighted to take up to 100 of the Guantanamo prisoners, since once you're in a high-security environment, a prisoner is a prisoner is a prisoner, and frankly, Hardin, Montana needs the jobs. But the Republican scary music campaign, or something, has driven Democrats to distraction on Guantanamo. Here, for example, was Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid trying to explain himself on the subject today and tying himself into a who's on first logic pretzel in the process.
I'm saying that the United States Senate, Democrats and Republicans, do not want terrorists to be released in the United States. That's very clear.
No one's talking about releasing them. They're talking about putting them in prison somewhere in the United States.
Can't put them in prison unless you release them.
Sir, you got to clarify that a little bit. I mean, if they were held in the
I can't make it any more clear than the statement I have given to you. We will never allow terrorists to be released in the United States.
Can't put them in prison unless you release them. As far as I know, there isn't usually a step in the transfer of prisoners process where you just let the prisoners run free and then you go chasing after them again. As far as I know, that's not part of that process. Joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Schiff, thank you very much for joining us.
It's great to be with you again.
Senate Democrats today said no funding to close Guantanamo. House Democrats made the same move last week. Please tell me there's some secret ninja tactical move going on here, that there's more than meets the eye.
Well, there is more than meets the eye. I'm not sure it's a ninja tactic, but the Democrats in both houses do support the decision to close Guantanamo. It's the right decision, has to be done. Guantanamo's been a black eye and unfortunately a recruiting tool for terrorists around the world, and more than that, it's been ineffective in terms of prosecuting terrorists. What we did in the Congress, though, was we basically said to the administration that after 8 years of being left out of the deliberations on how detainees ought to be handled, because it was all done by executive order and executive fiat under the Bush administration, that we were not willing to continue that in the current administration. And it took the House and now the Senate withholding the funds for Gitmo to basically get the administration's attention. And actually, I have to say, Rachel, it was very effective, because within days of the House action, the administration for the first time announced that it intended to revive the commissions to some degree. That's the first time we heard any indication of what the administration planned to do with the detainees. So it had its effect. It was a blunt instrument, I have to admit, and maybe not the instrument I would choose to use. But it is important now, almost halfway into the year, if we are going to stick to this timetable of shutting the prison at the end of the year, that the Congress be brought in both in terms of conferring, as well as the legislation that may be necessary to close the prison.
There is a sort of complicated matrix of policy and politics here, though. And as the Republicans try to demonize the very idea of closing Guantanamo, despite the fact that Bush said he wanted to close Guantanamo and John McCain said that he would close Guantanamo as president, the Republicans are trying to make a lot of political hay there. If congressional Democrats are trying to stop the funding in order to get a plan, one would hope that the congressional Democrats had a plan of their own that they were hoping the White House would get on board with, that they weren't just being an obstruction and trying to get attention without some sort of goal of their own. Is there a House Democratic goal here?
Well, I think that's a fair commentary, and all I can tell you is I have a plan. I've introduced legislation, Rachel, to broaden the jurisdiction of the military courts-martial and try the majority of the detainees in the military courts-martial system, which has been around longer than our country's been around. It's been a very effective venue to balance the national security concerns as well as due process issues. And when I raised in the Appropriations Committee that I thought this was the best model to use because, among other things, it would allow us to hold up to the rest of the world that we're giving these detainees effectively the same due process we give to our own troops when they're brought up on court-martial charges. I was ridiculed by Oliver North, which I took as great praise. But so, you know, there are some of us that are actively pursuing legislation to set up a model we think would be workable. I can't say that I have the whole Democratic caucus united behind this concept, but many of us are and have been for some time diligently working on it. And I would hope, and I've conveyed this to the White House counsel as well as our Attorney General, that this would be a collaborative process and indeed that we would work together. Even if some of this can be done by executive order, it will be stronger legally in the courts if it's done in concert with Congress. And also, I think it's good public policy to have the buy-in of the Congress in how these detainees ought to be detained, how they ought to be tried, what due process should be applied. And I think the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, is a pretty good model to use.
This is a plan that's going to obviously need buy-in on both sides because it's going to be controversial every step of the way. Democrats certainly getting attention from the White House on this and from me. I look forward to having you back to discuss this, discuss the policy here as it gets worked out. Congressman Schiff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Change in a tea bag and other experiments in Republican pout rage will be coming up on the show in just a moment. Plus, Kent Jones will introduce us to Ida, the 47-million-year-old fossil. She seems very nice. She has a place in Florida, I understand. It's all coming up.
We're visiting hidden valleys across America to see how they like the taste of Kraft Ranch.
That's good stuff.
Uh-huh. See? People in Hidden Valley love Kraft Ranch.
This is Hidden Valley Golf Course.
Yeah, exactly.
Cockroaches can carry 33 infectious diseases. Get to them before they get to you. With the ultimate protection guarantee only from Terminex. Call or click today to protect your home. Terminex, power over pests.
Tim, I wanted to talk with you about my home equity loan.
Oh, sure, Karen.
I'm going with Lending Tree instead.
Karen, please. How could you choose Lending Tree over us?
Well, at Lending Tree, I get all the terms up front, so I know there will be no surprises at closing. It makes me feel like they're really looking out for me.
But Karen, you work here.
Yeah. Awkward, isn't it?
Join the 20 million people who use Lending Tree. When banks compete, you win.
It's been an industry leader for generations. Born of a rich performance heritage, equipped with breakthrough safety features, and wrapped in a classic, timeless look. We believe great cars take a vision not everyone shares. Hurry into the spring event by Mercedes-Benz for exceptional offers on the 2009 E-Class and other models, going on right now at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer.
If you could have your perfect cell phone, what would that do for you? Phones these days do so much more. Internet, emails, camera, GPS, text messages. They're really your lifeline to so many things. The biggest thing for Best Buy Mobile is that you can look at AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint. We're very familiar with the activation systems, the features, the pricing, the plans. We're able to give that all to you and help you make a better choice for yourself. We'll transfer your numbers, all your pictures, your music. We're going to make sure you hit the ground running. I'm a huge phone geek, and I want people to be just as excited for this stuff as I am.
On
June 5th.
I'm Dr. Marshall.
Friends? Travel through time and space.
No immediate danger. I repeat, no immediate danger. Will you stop that? Please. You're freaking me out.
To the land of the lost.
You can't cross the bumbling idiot of the dinosaur world.
You ever get tired of being wrong? I really do.
Rated PG-13.
What happens when the inmates run the cameras?
I want to get my life wet.
The season premiere of Lockup, Monday at 10 on
Want to burn 1,000 calories in a 1-hour-long workout? You will when you train like a boxer. Boxing Incorporated trainers push you like your own personal coach. A strength workout, a cardio workout, all in one. And we're not just boxing. Boxing Incorporated has mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and grappling. The best personal training available. Boxing Incorporated, 2 locations in Tucson. Sign up this month and get hand wraps, gloves, and your first month free.
MatrixDirect.com.
Coming up, Michael Steele drops the euphemisms, drops the hedging, and just full-on embraces the tea bag as the symbol of the Republican Party. And mad fallout from the Donald Rumsfeld wartime Bible quotation story that just broke in GQ. Now, one of Rumsfeld's former aides is turning on him as well. That's coming up. But first, it's time for a couple of holy mackerel stories in today's news. The security contractor Blackwater, or I should say, the security contractor formerly known as Blackwater, now known as She, is associated for most Americans with Iraq. Iraq is where 4 Blackwater employees were killed and hung from lampposts in Fallujah. It's also where Blackwater employees are charged with having killed 17 Iraqi civilians in Nisour Square. It's where one Blackwater employee was charged with getting drunk on Christmas Eve and then shooting one of the bodyguards of Iraq's vice president. It's where Blackwater ultimately was kicked out by the Iraqi government, which yanked their license to operate in that country as of this month. Blackwater is also operating now in Afghanistan. And today we've got new details on allegations that 4 Blackwater employees discharged their weapons this month, killing 1 Afghan civilian and injuring several others in Kabul after they got into a car accident. There were initial reports that at least 2 of the 4 Blackwater employees involved in the shooting had been drinking before the incident. Today, the U.S. military confirmed that the contractors were hired to conduct military training in Afghanistan and that they were not authorized to be carrying weapons at the time the shooting took place. A lawyer for the Blackwater employees, Daniel J. Callahan, tells us the guns were AK-47s issued to the employees by Blackwater, or She, after those guns were taken from insurgents. The lawyer says all 4 contractors are either back in the United States or on their way home now. Meanwhile, we have just received the first ever report from the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. That report says that there is no effective oversight of the billions of American dollars that are being paid to contractors for training Afghanistan security forces. The audit reports that some of the contract oversight staff, who are supposed to be making on-site inspections to ensure that contractors are doing what they're paid to be doing in Afghanistan, are actually just working out of offices in Maryland, approximately 6,900 miles away from where the work that they're supposedly monitoring is being done. Heck of a commute, right? Next up, 5 members of the Khmer Rouge are on trial for crimes against humanity in a United Nations-backed tribunal in Cambodia. Between 1974 and 1979, the Khmer Rouge killed nearly 2 million people. Their leader, of course, was Pol Pot. One man who was recruited by the Khmer Rouge as a photographer is now trying to raise money for a museum to house artifacts that he collected from this horrendous period in human history. His big idea for raising money is to sell off some of Pol Pot's stuff. For sale, Pol Pot's sandals, some of his clothing, and his toilet. The asking price is $1.5 million. Frankly, I would pay half of that just to unknow the fact that someone saved Pol Pot's toilet. And finally, a follow-up to the only story about a reality show that's ever inspired true obsession and glee from the entire staff of The Rachel Maddow Show. That would be the prospect that disgraced former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich would be joining the NBC show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. The show's producers, you'll recall, asked Governor Blagojevich to join other stars like actor Stephen Baldwin, who accused the president yesterday of talking jive, and model Janice Dickinson and a bunch of other sort of famous people in the jungles of Costa Rica. There, the celebrities would have to accomplish all sorts of gross and terrifying tasks to the delight of viewers watching at home. Now, unfortunately, Governor Blagojevich's plans to join the show were stymied when the judge in his corruption case refused to allow him to travel. Luckily, producers have reportedly found a replacement for Rod Blagojevich. The replacement is Patty Blagojevich, the governor's wife, last heard from in her appearances on federal prosecutors' wiretaps. A lawyer representing Patty Blagojevich spoke with the Chicago Sun-Times yesterday and confirmed that his client has accepted an offer from NBC and will fly to L.A. this week to sign the contract. We asked NBC today to confirm the casting decision, and they helpfully told our producers, quote, "We have no comment," which was nice. Mrs. Blagojevich, if you ever want to talk about your expected star turn right here on The Rachel Maddow Show, you would be more than welcome.
We will not be quiet. We will not try to blend in. Disappear in the background. Play second fiddle. When we're in a sandwich, a salad, a panini or crostini, you'll know it. We're not like the others. We won't ever try to be. We are our own mixed up blend of one-of-a-kind spices. We are Miracle Whip, and we will not tone it down.
Here's Ryan getting ready to make his approach to the men's room.
Looks like he needs to go urgently.
True. And there's Casey about to drive, also to the men's room.
He has been going over and over.
Now Wilson, third time today, says he's going a lot at night, too.
Yes, I'm afraid he thinks it's par for the course.
They ought to see their doctors.
Could be male urinary symptoms due to BPH and enlarged prostate.
For many guys, prescription Flomax reduces their urinary symptoms due to BPH in 1 week.
1 week?
Only your doctor can tell if you have BPH, not a more serious condition like prostate cancer.
Avoid driving or hazardous tasks for 12 hours after your first dose or increase in dose, as a sudden drop in blood pressure may occur, rarely resulting in fainting.
If considering cataract surgery, tell your eye surgeon you've taken Flomax. Common side effects are runny nose, dizziness, and decrease in semen.
Ask your doctor if Flomax is right for you.
And call 877-4FLOMAX to see if you qualify for up to $40 off new or refill prescriptions.
For many men, Flomax can make a difference in 1 week.
She's losing her battle against nasal allergies, but we found a way to fight it.
Omneris to the nose!
Omneris works differently than many other allergy medications. Omneris fights nasal allergy symptoms that occur from allergic inflammation. Relieve those symptoms with Omneris. Side effects may include headache, nosebleed, and sore throat. Mission accomplished. Oh, incoming! Ask your doctor about Omneris. In the battle against nasal allergy symptoms, Omneris combats the cause.
Tomorrow, Gitmo prisoners. Unwanted? He finds one American town with a welcome mat.
Well, that's luck, huh?
Then, Rachel's reality check on a GOP comeback.
It's sort of a smack.
Countdown with Keith Olbermann tomorrow at 8, followed by The Rachel Maddow Show at 9 on MSNBC, the place for politics.
This change is being delivered in a tea bag, and that's a wonderful thing. I couldn't have said it better myself.
This change, my friends, is being delivered in a tea bag, and that's a wonderful thing.
That's Michael Steele, chairman of the Republican Party. Just so we understand the political impact of what happened today in the Republican National Committee's big meeting, I just want you to listen to that one more time.
This change, my friends, is being delivered in a tea bag.
Hold it right there. Now, Start it again and then listen to how the audience responds.
And that's a wonderful thing.
Michael Steele finally found something that gets the Republican National Committee on its feet and excited. For the record, I didn't say it. No one is putting this on the GOP. This is not some titillating left-wing fantasy. This is the Republicans on their own embracing the teabag as their symbol and doing so with gusto.
This change, my friends, is being delivered in a teabag, and that's a wonderful thing.
Wonderful. Mr. Steele's speech today to Republican National Committee members was wonderful. It was billed as a new starting point for the GOP. He did own up to two Republican mistakes, excessive spending and being changed by Washington. After owning up to those two mistakes, he then declared the official end of the era of apologizing for Republican mistakes. It was a very short era. After that was out of the way, there was a lot of Michael Steele giving himself advice, and then Michael Steele rejecting that same advice from himself.
We're going to take the president head on. We've seen strategists writing memos and doing briefings urging the Republicans avoid confronting the president, steer clear of any frontal assaults on his administration. They suggest that instead we should go after Nancy Pelosi, who nobody likes.
So the advice is, from Michael Steele, we should actually start taking on President Obama, not taking on Speaker Pelosi.
President Obama could not be more partisan, yielding his legislative agenda almost entirely to radicals like Nancy Pelosi.
If you're keeping track at home, the forget Nancy Pelosi, hit the president head-on rule lasted exactly 4 minutes and 1 second. Mr. Steele also made it clear that in order for the party to rebound, Republicans need to focus on the future.
Today, we are declaring an end to the era of Republicans looking backwards. The Republican Party is again going to emerge as the party of new ideas.
Sounds like an excellent plan. No more talking about Republican leaders of yore.
So, in the best spirit of President Reagan, it's time to saddle up and ride.
Apparently, Mr. Steele neglected to mention the Ronald Reagan invocation exception to the new always look forward rule. As of right now, there's probably no constituency in the country that Michael Steele is more popular with than Democrats and the good people at Lipton and Tazo and Celestial Seasonings. Joining us now, my friend Steve Bennin, who writes for WashingtonMonthly.com. Steve, thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All criticism aside, Michael Steele did get a standing ovation for that speech at the RNC today. Do you think that may mean that his relationship with the rest of the Republican Party is improving?
It's possible. When I saw them stand up, my first thought was they were really thrilled. He only said bling 0 times, but he did mention teabagging once. But that said, I think that there are systemic, fundamental problems with the Steele chairmanship. It's been something of a disaster for months. It's been an embarrassment for just as long. And those underlying problems haven't gone away. Steele's chairmanship is still wrought with problems of gaffes and mismanagement at the RNC. And so while I think that the speech was well received, I think that in general, there's still a long way to go before the chairman has actually got a strong hold of the party.
Steve, one of the big criticisms of Steele's speech today was that it was all about becoming the party of new ideas, right? But he didn't actually present any of these elusive new ideas. That's been sort of a recurring problem in the Republican Party since Obama was elected. Are enough people pointing this out that that's becoming sort of an officially embarrassing thing, talking about new ideas but not actually presenting any?
Well, you would think so, but then I was struck by that very moment in the speech when Steele went out of his way to say that this party is going to be the party of new ideas, and then he just kind of let it hang there without actually following up with any new ideas. You know, given his role in the party, I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, in fairness, it's not his job to come up with the new ideas for the party. That's more the responsibility of lawmakers like Mitch McConnell and John Boehner. But at the same time, he brought it up as a way of emphasizing the significance of this, and yet he couldn't actually point to any new ideas. It undermines a certain argument on his side, and it suggests that there's a substantive problem the party hasn't quite gotten over yet.
Well, the opposite side from substantive is the name-calling thing that's going on right now. The RNC is set to vote tomorrow on a resolution telling Democrats they should rename themselves as the Democrat Socialist Party. Mr. Steele is now speaking out against that, and there's, I guess, a report today that sponsors of the Democrat Socialist resolution might be willing to tweak the language to simply just condemn the Democrats for being socialist instead of demanding that they change their name. Is this maybe what the face of moderation is in the RNC?
Well, perhaps. It's certainly not the face of the grammar police. They haven't quite gotten over the notion that it's the Democratic Party. But putting that aside, I think that, Steele has been outspoken against this resolution for quite some time. I think in part because it'd be incumbent upon him to repeat this nonsensical phrase when he does television appearances. And so he's obviously been lobbying the party to drop this whole nonsense. And apparently this late-breaking word is that the party is willing to back off on that. I think that's probably a good move. It's been something of an embarrassment for the party in general that their number one goal right now is to beg the Democrats to change their name. It's a mistake from the start, and I think that in general, if they're backing away from that, it's a good move.
Steve Bannon of WashingtonMonthly.com, whose blog I read every single day. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Steve. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Rachel.
So the so-called Sunni awakening that led to decreased violence in Iraq, which started in 2006, turns out it maybe could have started in 2004 and saved thousands of lives in the process. The reason it didn't is apparently because of Donald Rumsfeld's deputy, who wanted to treat the Sunnis as, and I quote, Nazis. Too bad the era of Republican apology is officially over. We will have more on that bombshell in just a moment.
Has progress taken us to a better place? I'd say it's taken us for a ride. Honestly, what thanks do we owe progress? We're up to our necks in landfill and down to the wire in resources, and climate change is out to get us. That's why progress plays no role inside post-shredded wheat. Here, we put the no in innovation. Post-original shredded wheat is still just the one simple, honest ingredient which naturally comes with vitamins, minerals, and fiber. All we did was make it spoon-sized. Did we go too far?
With rheumatoid arthritis, it seems like my life is split in two. There's the life I live,
and the life I want to live.
Fortunately, there's Enbrel. Enbrel can help relieve pain, stiffness, fatigue, and stop joint damage. Because Enbrel suppresses your immune system, it may lower your ability to fight infections. Serious, sometimes fatal events, including infections, tuberculosis, lymphoma, and nervous system and blood disorders have occurred. Before starting Enbrel, your doctor should test you for tuberculosis. Also, ask your doctor if you live in an area with a greater risk for certain fungal infections. Don't start Enbrel if you have an infection like the flu. Tell your doctor if you're prone to infections, have cuts or sores, have had hepatitis B, have been treated for heart failure, or if, while on Enbrel, you experience persistent fever, bruising, bleeding, or paleness. Help bridge the gap. Ask your rheumatologist if Enbrel is right for you and about our copay and financial support programs.
One love! It's a river that runs through all of us. It's a journey we should all take together. A remedy for all humanity. Respect and solidarity. Come and feel the spirit. The spirit of Jamaica. I say, let's get together and we're gonna feel.
For great savings, book today.
As the Republican Party continues its search for meaning in the political minority, the former senior members of the Bush administration continue their devolution into the political equivalent of the Donner Party, eating one another to ensure their own survival. The latest previously loyal Bushie to have turned against the administration on the issue of torture is Karen Hughes, longtime friend and advisor to President Bush, who came with him to Washington from Texas. She tells the Houston Chronicle, quote, I was very vocal in the internal debate. I worried about how that would make us look in the eyes of the world. It is amazing how clarifying it is to have a new administration in Washington. All of a sudden, everyone's remembering how much they were against torture at the time. It just never occurred to them to say anything about it publicly until now.
Okay, so the Ford F-150 is the only truck with those new steps on the tailgate and the side of the box, making it easier to get to the cargo. And you're thinking, nah, I don't need those. Oh yeah? Let's do the math. How many times are you going to be in and out of the cargo box? Once? Twice? No. I'm thinking 50, maybe 60,000 times, especially since it's got the most payload. You see what I'm getting at? Hey, unless all you're carrying is yarn, it seems like a no-brainer to me, okay? It's not just a pickup truck. It's a Ford F-150.
Did you know the Honda Accord holds its value better than any other car in its class? And the reasons are simple. Its exceptional engineering can help lead to lower maintenance costs, and being a top safety pick can help lower insurance expenses. So what's the bottom line? The Accord costs less over the long term. And that's music to anyone's ears. Go to Edmunds.com for an independent report on the true cost to own an Accord. And then see your Honda dealer for great leases and low financing.
America's largest pet pharmacy.
Every day now, we are getting new revelations about what was happening inside the Bush administration while things were going horribly, horribly wrong. This week, former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and his reputation are taking the beating. On this show last night, we hosted President Bush's biographer, Robert Draper, to discuss his new article in GQ. He interviews more than a dozen George W. Bush loyalists who still like George Bush, but who are more than eager to spill the beans on all the things that they say Donald Rumsfeld should be blamed for. Not sending troops and helicopters to Katrina. Bush loyalists blame Rumsfeld. Not caring enough about Hurricane Rita in Texas to even take a phone call about taking over control of the National Guard there. Bush loyalists blame Rumsfeld. Not following through on efforts to protect uranium and plutonium from smugglers and terrorists. Bush loyalists blame Rumsfeld. Or recklessly distributing daily wartime intelligence briefings headed up with Bible verses to appeal to Bush's crusade mentality about the Iraq War. Bush loyalists blame Rumsfeld for all of it. Rumsfeld's spokesman issued a response on the Bible verse briefings today, saying that Donald Rumsfeld only occasionally saw the World Intelligence Update, and no one who made that update reported to him. Awkwardly, the cover sheets are actually called the Secretary of Defense Worldwide Intelligence Update, which makes it kind of hard to argue that they didn't have anything to do with the Secretary of Defense. And now, another revelation. Donald Rumsfeld's former special assistant, Jerry Jones, is now speaking out against Rumsfeld as well, telling reporter David Rose at VanityFair.com about another previously unknown Rumsfeld disaster, or in this case, a disastrously missed opportunity. In Iraq, probably the single most important factor in bringing down the level of violence and changing the course of the war in 2007 and ultimately into 2008 was the decision by Sunni tribes in western Iraq to stop fighting U.S. forces and instead to fight extremist groups within the insurgency like al-Qaeda. Now, Rumsfeld's former special assistant tells Vanity Fair that that could have happened more than 2 years earlier, that the Sunnis made overtures to the U.S., the same overtures to the U.S., back in 2004, but that Rumsfeld's ideological neoconservative deputy, Paul Wolfowitz, responded to those overtures by calling the Sunnis Nazis and kiboshing the whole plan. Weirdly, we actually got a bit of foreshadowing about this revelation last week in our interview with former UN weapons inspector Charles Delfer, who on this show described the harsh view that top Bush officials had about minority Sunnis.
It's important to remember the context of the times. We had just gone into Baghdad. This was April 2003. Saddam was gone. What was different about this and other circumstances where the United States is dealing with enemies, all the Iraqis, the senior Iraqis at that point in time, they wanted to be on our side. Bear in mind, this is before we made the disastrous decisions that, informed the Iraqis that we were going to treat their army as an enemy and that all Baathists were going to be treated as Nazis.
All Baathists, the political party dominated by Sunnis, would be treated as Nazis. Well, Vanity Fair now quotes Paul Wolfowitz as twice calling Iraqi Sunnis Nazis, once in writing, once at a meeting, both times in the process of shutting down proposals for U.S. forces to work with Sunnis, a policy that finally went through once Rumsfeld and his deputy, Paul Wolfowitz, were gone. But not before 2,000 Americans and thousands more Iraqis would die in the escalating war between 2004 and 2006. Joining us now is Mark Perry. He's director of the Conflicts Forum. He's author of a forthcoming book called Talking to Terrorists. He was a major source for Vanity Fair's David Rose for this news story. Mr. Perry, thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
David Rose reports in Vanity Fair, in part on the basis of documents he got from you, that the Sunni awakening could have happened way earlier than late 2006. Did you find that the idea had support, but it got kiboshed in Washington?
I was given documents that showed in December of 2003 that Donald Rumsfeld was being pushed by the Joint Chiefs of Staff to open to the Jabburi tribe in Anbar. He passed on these documents to Paul Wolfowitz and to people in the State Department. Wolfowitz wrote back in one of the documents that I saw, in the margin of the documents, "They are Nazis." And that ended the attempt on the part of the military in that time in December to open. In July of 2004, the U.S. Marine Corps, the 3rd Civil Affairs Group, and they're the real heroes here, opened to the Sunni tribes, and when Paul Wolfowitz found out about it, he went absolutely crazy, called in people from the Pentagon who were a part of it and said, "Don't you know they are Nazis?" So there was a real attempt to stop the military, what the military thought was a good program to open to the Anbar tribes, to the moderates in the Anbar tribes, and get them to turn the guns on al-Qaeda. And Wolfowitz and, frankly, Condi Rice put an end to it.
So even as the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Marine Corps are making recommendations that this should be pursued, Rumsfeld delegates the decision-making on this matter essentially to Paul Wolfowitz. It seems that the Vanity Fair piece implies, again on the basis of your information, that Rumsfeld himself may have thought this sort of a rapprochement was a good idea, but because he delegated the decision-making to Wolfowitz, that's why it got kiboshed. Is that true? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd go a little bit further, and I know that people will just be horrified by this, but in some sense, Donald Rumsfeld's kind of a hero. He really wanted to push this, and he was stopped. He was stopped by the White House. He was stopped by Paul Bremer. He was stopped by Condi Rice. He was stopped by Wolfowitz. And he, I think, really tried to look the other way as the Marines opened up to the insurgency. I'm not saying Donald Rumsfeld's a hero, but he's not the guy who stopped this. The guy who stopped this is Wolfowitz, Paul Bremer, people in the State Department in Baghdad. And after a time, the Marines in Anbar just ignored all that and went ahead with their contacts anyway.
Wolfowitz did work for Rumsfeld, though, yes?
There doesn't seem to be any question about that.
Yeah. Do you think that an American-Iraqi Sunni alliance in 2004 would have saved American and Iraqi lives?
I think that if the initiative had been supported as it should have been by policymakers in Washington, if we had not been filled with our own sense of ideological rightness, if we had really pushed it hard, it could have been done much earlier, and I think you're right. It would have saved thousands of lives.
Do you know of other instances in which Wolfowitz specifically used that word Nazis in talking about the Sunnis? Do you have any insight into why he thought that?
My understanding is that Mr. Wolfowitz, at the end of the first Gulf War, was very horrified by what was happening to the Shia tribesmen in the South, and he was really haunted by what happened and felt guilt-ridden that the United States had not done much to help them, and wanted to really empower them in their own country, and began to look at them as a special kind of a victim. That's what I've been told, that he was so powerfully driven by what had happened at the end of the first Gulf War that he took this position.
Mark Perry, director of the Conflicts Forum, author of the forthcoming book called Talking to Terrorists. Thank you for your time tonight. Thanks for contributing to what we know about this subject.
My pleasure.
Coming up on Countdown, Keith's special guest is Elizabeth Edwards. Next on this show, has the missing link finally been found? My friend Kent Jones investigates.
Fair, straightforward pricing. That's what TD Ameritrade stands for. Think about it. Why pay investing fees you shouldn't have to, or account fees that aren't clear, like inactivity fees or maintenance fees? It's not right, and you know it. And the thing is, the other investment firms know it, but they do it anyway, and that's just not fair or straightforward. TD Ameritrade. Independence is the spirit that drives America's most successful investors.
This is more than my easy button. It's my save so much on paper we can
do personal printing again button.
Sure, why not?
Now get 50% back in Staples Rewards when you purchase any case of paper. Staples, that was easy.
make meeting times, lunch times, and conference times. But what we'd rather be making are tea times. Tea times are the official start of what we love to do. The time for shots we'd rather forget, and the ones we'll talk about forever. In Michigan, long days, relaxing weather, and more than 800 pristine courses make for the perfect tea time. Because being able to play all day is pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
If you've had a heart attack caused by a completely blocked artery, another heart attack could be lurking, waiting to strike. A heart attack caused by a clot, one that could be fatal. But Plavix helps save lives. Plavix, taken with other heart medicines, goes beyond what other heart medicines do alone to provide greater protection against heart attack or stroke and even death by helping to keep blood platelets from sticking together and forming clots. Ask your doctor about Plavix, protection that helps save lives.
If you have a stomach ulcer or other condition that causes bleeding, you should not use Plavix. When taking Plavix alone or with some other medicines, including aspirin, the risk of bleeding may increase, so tell your doctor before planning surgery. And always talk to your doctor before taking aspirin or other medicines with Plavix, especially if you've had a stroke. If you develop fever or unexplained weakness or confusion, tell your doctor promptly, as these may be signs of a rare but potentially life-threatening condition called TTP, which has been reported rarely, sometimes in less than 2 weeks after starting therapy. Other rare but serious side effects may occur.
If you take Plavix with other heart medicines, continuing to do so will help increase your protection against a future heart attack or stroke beyond your other heart medicines alone. You may be feeling better, but your risk never goes away. Help stay protected. Stay with Plavix.
Performance now is all about logic. That some cars cost as much as $1,500 to maintain is one thing. That others cost even more is quite another. That a BMW costs you nothing to maintain defies all logic whatsoever, and in turn makes it the most logical choice of all. Performance now is the 3 Series. Visit your local BMW center today for a test drive.
Keith Olbermann's interview with Elizabeth Edwards on her critics and her struggle. Countdown with Keith Olbermann, next only on MSNBC.
We turn now to our stuff that happened a really, really, really long time ago correspondent, Kent Jones. Hi, Kent. What do you got?
Hi, Rachel. Stuff from really, really long time ago. Exciting fossil news at the Museum of Natural History today.
Okay.
Check it out.
All right.
Meet your great, 1,000 times great grandmother, Ida. Ida is a perfectly preserved fossil that could be the missing link between humans and apes. And now, after 47 million years, she's famous. After a splashy coming out party in New York today, books, documentaries, TV specials are all in the works about this pre-Jurassic it girl. Paleontologists are still in the early, gushy part of the romance.
This specimen is really like finding the lost ark for archaeologists.
Do you realize what the ark is?
Ida was 3 feet long, sort of cat-like, with fingernails and opposable thumbs, which would explain this. Ida is part of the line that includes monkeys and apes.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
And eventually, us.
Your slutty ass actions ruin your life. I don't have any slutty ass actions. You're a whore.
Scientists say Ida's hind legs led to primates standing upright, a breakthrough that could finally confirm Charles Darwin's theory of evolution.
We the people of the United States,
which needs defending from time to time. Thanks, Ida. You look great.
Wow. Okay. Cat-like, but with opposable thumbs.
Had opposable thumbs and fingernails, and apparently could stand upright, paving the way for all the primates that followed, including
us.
Yeah.
You know, when I first got together with Susan, she had a cat that was about 40 years old.
Right.
And I used to have nightmares that cat would walk around on its hind legs and kill me. It's like my recurring nightmare.
Come here.
I really like this person that I've just met in my life, but that cat! And my recurring nightmare was that meow meow would come stalk me sometime on her hind leg. Anyways, you've ruined that for me.
I think it's all fine. I think you're going to be fine.
All right, I have a cocktail moment for you.
Great.
The St. Paul Saints. minor league team in St. Paul, Minnesota. Beautiful St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And the great thing about minor league baseball, there's a million great things about minor league ball. As you know, I'm a big fan. But they're very good at marketing.
Sure.
And the St. Paul Saints have done very well with their mascots. They always have a pig as a mascot, but it gets sort of a new name every year. In 2001, their mascot was named Kevin Bacon. 2003, it was Piggy Smalls, notorious P.I.G.
Inevitably, yeah.
2008, it was Barack Ohama. Ohama, kind of looks like Obama if you squint.
Nice.
Now their new one, just revealed, is Slumhog Millionaire.
Oh, look at Slumhog. Oh, Jai Ho.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Thank you very much, Kent.
Sure.
Thank you at home for watching tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Until then, you can email us, rachel@msnbc.com. Check out our new iPhone application. It's very cool at our website, rachel.msnbc.com. Countdown with Keith Olbermann starts right now.
Which of these stories will you be talking about tomorrow? Michael Steele threatens to quit as chairman of the Republican National Committee.
If you want a figurehead chairman, you can have a figurehead chairman, but it won't be Michael Steele.
On the eve of the vote to try to rebrand the opposition the Socialist Democrat Party, Steele meets with state GOP chairman.
We're going to take the president head on. The honeymoon is over.
Head on. Don't forget your helmet this time. Can't tell their briefings from their boxers. New evidence from Congressman David Obey that even non-classified parts of the CIA briefings on torture are factually wrong about the when, the where, and now the who. How can we trust the CIA's records on the tough stuff when